So Varun, can we start?
Yes, absolutely. I think we have about 96 participants right now. And I think we're inching close to I think we can start with the session.
Yeah, because I really have a hard stop. I have a customer call, so I cannot extend
Yes,
beyond
absolutely.
the schedule time. So, okay. So good afternoon, everyone. How's it going? Sitting at home? Okay. I think Varun, everybody is muted, or how is it? How does it work?
They've been muted, but they can actually start keying their questions if they have, and we can just go ahead with the sessions as we progress. And if they have any doubts, they can probably unmute themselves and we'll talk.
Okay, fine, fair enough. So once again, good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to be able to speak to all of you. Although I do have a very busy schedule, I really enjoy talking to the budding talent of our country. So I appreciate this opportunity. And Varun came up with a bunch of topics that you all wanted, and cognitive technologies is something that Varun wanted me to deliver. I don't know why Varun wanted me to deliver this, but this is what he said you all will be interested in knowing. Okay, so the way I have organized this is I did not want to have a lot of slides and lot of content on slides. So I have only 7 slides, but I want to leave all of you with the basic concepts of cognitive. What is cognitive technology all about? What skills you need if you want to pursue a career here? What are some of the happenings in this field? I want to leave you all with a basic understanding of what is cognitive technology all about. Now, after this, obviously, it is a vast field, and I will definitely not do justice by covering it in just 55 minutes or 54 minutes. So after this, if there is a particular area that you want to have a deep dive, probably we will take that up as a subsequent session wherein I can continue and deliver that session for you. But for today, it's all about an overview of what cognitive technologies is all about. Quick intro of myself. As you can see on the slide, I'm Shanti Kaza. I handle the delivery teams for cybersecurity, and I handle rest of the world, meaning I handle Asia Pacific and Europe as the geographies for all cybersecurity projects. I have about years of 24 plus years of IT industry, so I think I've seen the whole industry grow. Being in India has been my personal choice, and but the one good thing about it is I have seen how IT has evolved in this country. So probably some of the examples that I will share and the concepts that I bring is also based on the live experience I have had over the years. Okay, so if I move forward, right, before I go into what exactly is cognitive technology, let us take a minute to understand how IT has evolved, right? Probably much before you were born, right? There were no computers, right? And the first set of computers, and even if I talk about India as an example, probably the first wave of computing was all just to kind of all the manual tasks that were happening. Probably we were trying to kind of bring them into a system. Banks were all independent entities, for example. Now they had to be centralized. So there's a one repository from which you can pull up any information at any point of time. That was kind of the first wave wherein computers were introduced to be able to, automate some of the manual tasks, centralize the information, and make reporting and, make reporting easy and have a single source of truth. That was his request. Okay. So that was kind of, the first wave, so to speak, of computing, right? Then came in the second wave. We did not have when we definitely did not see a lot of internet and things like that, right? It was pretty much mainframes and it was all local and things like that. Then the second wave came wherein everything, we have the internet, right? And internet has enabled so much of anywhere, anytime, any device kind of computing, access to information and things like that. So that I think is the second wave. Now come, and that also kind of saturated, because of which you can because of this internet and making it possible, we now live in a global village, right? And most of you listening to this call don't know what it means to stand in queue to get a ticket, right? I don't think any of you have visited the railway station, for that matter. I don't think you even go to the ticket counter in a movie theater now, right? Because everything is, all you need is one small box which is called the cell phone, and that does everything for you, right? That is the kind of the second wave. Now, a wave that has also been in the works along with second wave is more about how do you imitate human beings, right? And if any of you are following Elon Musk, right, I think he is kind of big on this part of the world. And I was just reading an article just before this conversation with you, wherein I think he's going to demonstrate a neural link between, which is going to stream music to the human brain on the 28th of August. It seems he's going to do a live web series, okay, live webinar, so to speak. So, so this is the third wave, which is predominantly, I'm sure you must have heard the word artificial intelligence, right? The word artificial is all because it is not actually biological, right? It is not coming from the human being. We're trying to emulate a human being. We're trying to make the computer work like a human being, think like a human being. So this branch wherein we are trying to develop or instill the intelligence in a computer is all, that is the third wave, and that is the wave of artificial intelligence. And that takes me to the definition of what cognitive technology is all about. Right. So when we're talking about, like I was just mentioning, when we're talking about cognitive technology, we're essentially talking about that field, right, wherein you're trying to mimic the human brain. Right? And what does the typical human brain do? It recognizes voice, it recognizes images, it recognizes, and by recognizing voice, by recognizing images, by doing a lot of parallel processing, serial processing in the brain, it is able to immediately correlate and come to a decision and also act. Right? Nobody feeds information into our brain for us to be able to come up with a decision, right? It is inherent capability of the human brain, right? So cognitive technology is trying to see how it can kind of mimic the human brain so that it is able to, a computer itself is able to recognize voices. A computer itself is able to, read some text and take some decision. It is able to see some pictures and take some decisions. It's quickly able to go through tons and tons or, petabytes of data and able to arrive at some patterns and ultimately help you with some kind of decision, right? This is what cognitive technology is all about. The word cognitive is all related to cognition, right? Cognition is nothing but your ability to be able to assimilate, understand, and also arrive at a decision making or a result, right? That is what is cognitive technology all about. And the reason why we hear cognitive technology so much is because I think it's the most evolved part of artificial intelligence, right? So that is the reason. And I've put some pictures here for you, just so that you take a look at what are some of the examples that are really making waves, right? So the first one is obviously your IBM Watson, which is which is the number one tool today. It crunches lots of data and it is able to derive patterns and throw insights at you. The picture in the middle is all about what all cognitive technology does, right? It does speech recognition, computer vision, machine learning, NLP, optimization, planning and scheduling, robotics, right? Rule-based systems and all. And I think the last picture, maybe some of you have it at home too, right? It is the most famous product, and especially in COVID, I think the sales of this particular product have soared, right? So we've seen a lot of, I'm hearing at least, that there are a lot of people who are buying this product. And this is your Roomba robot, right, which cleans your house. So these are some of the famous examples that are in place today. All the tools, both the tools, IBM Watson as well as Roomba, are based on cognitive technology. Okay. So Varun, how do you suggest? Should I just finish my slides and leave the floor open for questions, or should I pause after every slide?
I think we can have a Q&A session in the end, and we can probably have the students type in their questions in the chat box also. So we'll have real-time questions answering as we progress with the session.
Sure, that works. So all of you, if you have any questions on the slides as I cover, maybe you can just type in your questions. And probably, like I said, I don't have a whole lot of slides. I'm going to give you some good time to answer all your questions because I want to make this an interactive session. No point being a monologue. So, whatever questions you have, I'm happy to take that. So we'll do the Q&A at the end. Okay, so moving forward, right? So we've understood what is cognitive technology all about. Then the next question is, why the heck do we need to have cognitive technology? What is the benefit that cognitive technology brings to us, right? Is it just a fancy term? Am I, just trying to, appear I'm cutting edge by saying I'm deploying cognitive technology in my organization? No, right? So cognitive technology essentially is because, it helps you to innovate and discover, right? There are some new products, new opportunities that are coming in, like, for example, Roomba, right? Roomba would not have Roomba. What it does is, I don't know if some of you already have it at home. If you have, I think you can explain this better than me because I don't have. But the way it works is it has been designed in such a way that it can identify that it is coming to the end of the wall, and it is able to, kind of imagine the walls in a house, and because of which it continues to clean till it hits a wall, then changes its direction and automatically does it, right? So once, twice, thrice it does it, it learns more and it works. So now these kind of innovations wherein people never thought about it, but they come into place because of cognitive technology. Now then the second opportunity that cognitive technology throws upon is it helps you to optimize your operations. It helps you to, forecast better. It helps you to optimize some of those things, right? Now, even though I use examples like Roomba, Watson, or AP, whatever I'm going to cover, let us remember that I've just called out these four as the reasons for cognitive technology, but they're all interrelated, right? So something that you optimize, an operation, a device, for example, that you optimize, that you have introduced to optimize your operations can actually help you to become a product, an innovative product, right? So we have to remember that cognitive technology is helping you to, come up with new opportunities or new innovative products. It is helping you to optimize your operations. It is helping you to scale, or it is helping you to create some personalized experiences. So if I move on, right, for example, it can also help you to augment and scale expertise, right? For example, right, if you look at Associated Press, which is AP, maybe many of you may not have seen it, but every company is expected to also publish their corporate earnings to the shareholders, right, and to the general public, depending upon the, some content has to go to general public, some content has to go to shareholders, some content has to go to board, and things like that, right? But when this particular, when this particular report has to be generated, it is not a straightforward report that you can pull out from an Excel spreadsheet and publish. You may have to go through some 40,000 pages to be able to generate that P&L document or whatever, right? So all of that, right, this is where cognitive technology can help you, because it can help you to build a system which automatically, using NLP. NLP is your natural language processing, right? So you have fed into the system some keywords to look forward to. So automatically the system that you've built will be able to search for those words, pick up the relevant content, and publish the report for you. So that's how it builds you the scale, because you don't need to really go through 40,000 pages, have room for human error and things like that, right? And then last but not the least, I'm sure this is one area where all of us have been impacted, right? In the sense that all our when you go to Netflix, and I'm sure all of us are doing it now than never before, obviously there are recommendations, right? Basing on, you have a profile set for yourself in Netflix, basing on the profile that you select to, experience, there will be recommendations thrown on you, right? And these recommendations is not just on Netflix, right? Across the various applications that we are using today, there are always recommendations, sometimes irritating also, thrown on you. Amazon, eBay, you go to any site, any kind of, any opportunity, there's always, some recommendation being thrown on you. All that is possible because of the cognitive technology that is being used behind the scenes. There are algorithms that are clustering your behavior basing on what kind of movie you watched. There's a cluster that, there are some algorithms that are run behind the scenes which say, okay, this person seems to be liking this kind of movies. He or she falls in this cluster, and this cluster, the other likes in this cluster are so and so. So maybe this is what I will recommend. I'm just simplifying the whole thing for you, but essentially this is how it works. Okay, so this is, you use cognitive technology primarily because of these to achieve one of these four goals. If these four goals are not there, there's no point going for cognitive technology. So if I move into, some of the categories that we see today in cognitive technology, there is something like perceiving, there is something for predicting, and there is something for planning, right? So when we say perceiving, essentially your NLP, IoT, image recognition, classification, all this falls. By the very definition of the term perceiving, it means you're actually observing, right? You're actually seeing something, you're actually hearing something, right? And then you're using whatever you've seen or heard or collected to be able to arrive at some patterns, right? So this is, and the whole, this works with the help of sensors, right? Sensors planted in various parts of the devices. That's how you get to know the perceive part of it. Then there is a predictive part of it, right? Wherein you're not really working with anything like an image or a voice or anything, right? You're only working with data, right? You have lots and terabytes of data, pegabytes of data, and you're just crunching the data to be able to arrive at patterns, right? And we are not talking about small amounts of data, gigabytes and, kilobytes. For that, we don't need these solutions at all, right? So when the data is very huge, especially in the finance domain, in the finance domain, insurance domain, healthcare domain, there's so much data available that we don't know what to do, right? I'm sure all of you have heard this sentence which says data is the new oil, right? So there's so much of data that you work with, which is your predict. You use this data, you mine the data using statistical methods. There are various algorithms, most famous being Bayesian, wherein you kind of use this to understand patterns and use these patterns to predict the future, right? I want to know which product sells, just to kind of give you an example, right? If we all have clearance sales, right? So all of us have this clearance sales. All of us, see there is a 50% off, 40% off, 30%. There is a science behind it, right? So how does what is the timing when you should have this clearance sale? For which product, what is the clearance percentage that needs to be given? What is the discount percentage to be given? All of this is science. It's based on the forecasting data. It is based on how much, what have the sales been for a similar product in the previous season. Basing on that, it is fed into forecasting systems, basing on which the selling patterns are forecasted, and basing on which you give your discounts. So the whole process of a lot of decision making in the retail space happens due to the whatever we are talking, the data crunching that we are talking about. And then last but not the least is your planning stage, and this is where probably we have not seen enough strides yet. And this is the trickiest part, because here we are talking about how do you build intuition into the system, how do you build common sense into the system, and how do you build an emotional quotient. One of my cousin actually works with Elon Musk in California, and he tells me the biggest challenge, he's working on this driverless cars, right? The biggest challenge they face is no matter how much you think you have fed, how do you make the car understand the difference between a pebble and on the road and a small mouse, let's say, for example, that is just crossing the road, right? So, no matter what you say, the human brain has already come in with so much of capability that is very, very difficult to emulate by any external system. Right. So a lot of research as we speak is primarily working on this planning phase, because this is where we don't have a lot of, we've not made a lot of progress yet, I would say. I think both in perceive and predict, we have made enough progress, but not so much on the planning. And this is where most of, including Elon Musk, I keep going back to Elon Musk because I think in all the content that I go through, I think he's the one who's actually progressing or he's focused on this part, cognitive technologies. I think that is his highest priority. So that's the reason why I keep using him as an example. So I think this is where most of the focus is on. Okay, so this is about the categories. So moving on. So, okay, we've understood what cognitive technology is all about. We said, why do we need cognitive technologies? How does it help us? Then we said, what are some of the main categories we see cognitive technology in? But does that mean that, we can use cognitive technology everywhere and anywhere? Absolutely not, right? If that is the case, all of us across all companies should have already been investing in cognitive technologies right away, right? But that's not true. Why? Because there is a 3V concept that any company ideally should use, right? And those 3Vs are, first of all, there has to be a check to see whether, cognitive technology is a viable option for the company, whether it brings any value to the company, and is it important or vital for the company, right? So the first check that any company needs to do is whether, and this is important for all of us also to remember, because the moment we see cognitive technology or anything, right, we tend to get excited and say, oh wow, right? But if you are the developer and you are the person who's part of the project, I think it will help you understand to have this background, because you should also be doing these checks to see whether whatever we are trying to do is something that is actually viable to do, right? And it actually adds value to the customer, right? To the customer's business, right? Cognitive technology, let us remember, is a very, very expensive ordeal. We are not talking about something that will cost us. We are talking anything to the tune of, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. So this is not a small, simple throwaway kind of a ordeal, right? So we have to make sure that we are actually we have a return on investment, right? And then is it something that it is important to the organization? I'm not going to go through everything on this slide here, but just so that you understand, when we are talking about a the viable phase of the project, some of the indicators that we should see is, do we have large data sets, right? For example, there is a lot of study that happens to see, especially in the case of cancer, because across the globe, the only way you can, recover from cancer is if you can catch it early, right? So whenever you see large data sets, whenever you see, cognitive technology has a lot of relevance for detecting cancer. So there's a lot of reports already, for example, mammograms, right? So there's a lot of reports already available, right? So there's a lot of data that gets fed to these systems. Algorithms are applied to see if there are some known patterns that the radiologists can look for so that they can catch them early, right? So, and that is one big application. Apart from that, there is a lot of, the other thing that we also happen to have is, let's say we have our records on, in India, the way we handle health is totally different from, in India, just a minute, okay. So, in India, we kind of, we are not so very, what would I say, particular about our health records. We are not so very particular about keeping things discreet, right? That is not so much the case in Europe or in US, right? People are careful about, they don't share. It's not even legal to ask somebody if they're not well and things like that, right? So medical reports is a very, very important thing, right? And you have to keep it very confidential. So let's say there is an application which helps you to, maybe we don't have access to those records, but basing on some of the things, it gives you an indication saying that you are due for your diabetic check, right? Things like that. So that is one area that you think can be a viable area to go for for cognitive technology, right? And I think the last one, right? You have maintenance, right? Every, and when we are talking about huge manufacturing units, I'm sure there are a lot of units, CNC machines, so many machines which probably, for example, may have a maintenance window. You don't need to maintain it somewhere. You can just feed it into an algorithm, have a small system developed, which will automatically keep alerting, and you can have, depends upon how you want to develop the requirements, but you can have a system which automatically alerts you for any kind of upcoming maintenance, tells you that this particular machine is up for maintenance and things like that, right? And is it valuable, right? When we say valuable, let's say, for example, if I go back to the first example, right, like Associated Press, right, AP. I said it had to go through, let's say, for example, it is a routine report, right? So first of all, getting somebody to do a routine task, attrition may be high because people may not want to stick to that kind of a career path, right? Now, it is also possible that, there's a lot of errors that are made. So, you want people, you have somebody who's doing the job, then you have somebody who's actually reviewing and things like that. All of this adds to a lot of labor cost, right? So in which case, and, let's say, for example, I'm sure all of you have heard the term RPA, right? Robotic Process Automation, wherein, you're actually deploying some bots to automate some of these routine tasks, right? Wherein, you can just, there is a labor cost involved because of the magnitude of work. But if you can automate the whole process, it automatically becomes a very valuable proposition to the business because it's saving so much money for the company. right? And some of these, and I think the application here we are talking about is health insurance, right? And I think health insurance, again, right, I go back to the example of, or rather the reality that in India, probably, this example may not hold good. Again, it's like health insurance is also different, but in the rest of the world, insurance is a big thing, right? You can't, there is so much of regular checkups and things like that happen that there has to be a very clear, what would I say, checks that happen at regular intervals of time for all the insurance claims, right? So somebody has to, the amount of labor that gets deployed to make sure, the various claims and things like that are appropriately or correctly applied for is huge. So if you are able to automate that process, then obviously it results in a lot of cost savings, right? And I think there are situations wherein the skill availability itself is very, the skill availability is not high, right? There can be some areas wherein we don't have a whole lot of people available to be able to do the job, right? In such cases, again, if you're able to use cognitive technology, the returns are high, primarily because it may not help you with any cost reduction, but it definitely helps you to give better service, right? Because you're combating the situation of not having the experts on the ground, right? And then vital, right? Suppose there are certain, it's absolutely important, right? There are, let's say you have terabytes of data that you need to go through to come out with one report, right? Obviously, the margin of error or the probability of making an error by human being is very high, right? But in an industry like banking or healthcare, right? Let us talk about healthcare, right? Nanosecond difference can make a lot of difference for somebody who's actually undergoing a surgery, right? So precision is extremely critical, right? So so there are some industries wherein you cannot afford to make any mistake whatsoever, right? In such cases, when you don't have the option of making an error, and humans by nature tend to make errors, obviously technology helps you there, because now you're able to bring in a system that is able to do everything that the human is expected to do, but with precision. Okay, so this is this is just a heat map to tell you that while cognitive technologies are the next best thing that a company can go for, you need to have some kind of a checkpoint which says that you have to check whether there is a business sense to adopt cognitive technology or not. Okay. One second, I just want to make sure. Okay, sorry. Okay. Now, having said this, right, so we've seen what is cognitive technology all about. We've seen what are some of the areas that, we can have cognitive technologies. We are talking about what benefits it brings. Then how do you go about actually deploying cognitive technology? But is it all jazz? Is it so easy? Is it something that every company can go into, right? I don't think any of us have seen a lot of examples in on cognitive technology. The real, hi-fi or sky. I mean, we see them all in movies, but flying cars, I know we have some instances, but it's not like the norm, right? We are seeing an instance here, an instance there, and, things here and there, but it's not like it is the norm. Right? We still don't have there's a lot of application of ML in our day-to-day work. There's a lot of application in terms of, personalization. Yes, there is a lot of personalization that is happening. But in terms of whether we are able to come up with the new products or we are able to, really do the planning part, I don't think so. We are able to, make a lot of strides. And what do you think some of the drawbacks or what can some of the challenges challenges be that for cognitive technology that is not helping us move as quickly as we can? Because, just to go back to my experience, right, at least I'm hearing artificial intelligence for at least, if not more, at least for the past 15 years, right? I've been hearing. I don't think we've grown at the same pace of in the area of artificial intelligence as much as we've grown in some of the other areas, right? And if I sit down and think what could possibly be the reasons, apart from the fact that humans are not so easily predictable, and I think the human brain is something which is unimaginable. So I don't think it's easy to mimic a human brain. But besides the fact, right, there are certain other drawbacks. The other drawbacks are unpredictable costs and timelines. If you see, when I say unpredictable costs and timelines, this is an evolving technology, right? So if I have to look at, I have not put a slide for that, but I'm sure you will be able to relate to what I'm saying. If not, I can take that in the Q&A session also. If you see, first of all, you have to have a lot of data, right? You have to build something that understands data. Data is not structured data in the form of a relational database or something, right? We're talking about unstructured data. It can be a Twitter feed, it can be a Facebook feed, it could be a music video, it could be a TikTok video, it could be a YouTube video, it could be just me, just this meeting that we are having, whatever, right? Whatever be the base, you need to have a system which can absorb and store all of this data, right? Then you need to have a system that understands and derives some patterns so that the pattern can help in coming up with some kind of an output or a decision, right? All of this actually means you need to build a system grounds up. There is no one tool like, what would I say? What example can I use? Yeah. Let's say, for example, all of you must know Microsoft Word, PowerPoints, and things like that, right? All you need is just one license, right? Somebody comes and applies, installs that for you, and you're good to go, right? Cognitive technology is not necessarily a product that is available in the market that you can just buy or license and use it. Right? It is something that you have to go to your drawing board, understand, do the 3 V's, understand where you can do, and have a good understanding of the entire organization process flows, see where it fits, whether it makes any business sense. Basing on that, you have to build a system grounds up. And, you have to, you may have the skills in-house to be able to build it, or you may have to outsource it, but you have to build the system, grounds up. And then for somebody to be able to make a decision making, how does our decision making, how does the human brain decide, right? When you're born, you may not be born with a decision making inherently, right? But you develop that skill over a period of time, because the moment you see fire, your parents tell you, oh, this is fire. If you touch it, you will get burnt, right? So if you are a very adventurous person, probably you'll still go ahead and put your hand in fire, and with that experience, you now know fire should not be touched, right? But for you to be able to teach us, what would I say? A system to understand that fire looks like this. It is red and yellow in color. It has, what would I say? It goes in flames. Flames are of this color. They can be, even if you have a little bit of smoke and a little bit of fire, it's still fire. So many attributes, right? This is the various, photo. This is the various forms in which a fire can be seen. This is the various forms in which a fire can be produced. So much of information or intelligence has to be fed into a system to be able to, recognize next time it sees, right? At the end of the day, if you look at cognitive technology, anything that the system sees, it needs a reference point, right? So those reference points have to be first built, right? And those reference points have to be continuously added to be able to append it. Your dictionary of words must be built for your NLP to be working effectively. Maybe to begin with, let's say you want to run a sentiment analysis, right? Maybe you just say, okay, in a Twitter comment or in a Facebook comment, just see whether the person has written good or bad, right? If it is only good or bad, it starts with good or bad. Then, you'll say, okay, for a product, for example, right? So then you'll say, no, it's not just good or bad. Now the person can say, wow, right? That means it's good. Or sometimes when somebody is saying wow, it can also be bad because it is a satirical way of saying, right? So all of these permutations and combinations have to be fed into a system on a continuous basis. So all of this is, we cannot fix a timeline, and it's a evolving journey. So that makes it, that makes the projects little unpredictable when it comes to timeline as well as cost. Now, I think I took a little longer to explain an example just because it will help me with, some of the other points that we are going to come. So this requires a lot of technical talent, right? It is not, this is not an area where any of us can get into. It requires, I'll cover some of the skills that I thought will be useful, but, it is not, I wouldn't say, probably it's close to rocket science, right? It's not so very straightforward for all of us to jump in and say, yeah, I can also, do this, right? It's not like anybody can do it. It requires a lot of a different mindset. It requires a certain level of skills, and that is not something which is a common thing in the market. It's not like a bunch of Java developers that I can dump and get a greenfield development done, right? So, and there's a very little few people who understand what is this to be able to, let's say, for example, you must have heard this term called deep learning, right? So deep learning, right? What are we doing in deep learning? We're just trying to understand how the neural networks of the brain work. So, and it's called deep learning because you're trying to, the whole brain works through neural networks, right? So we are trying to understand and go as close as possible to the biological way in which the neural networks work, right? So that level of understanding and that level of being able to use the data and develop systems is not common. So, because of which, you don't have so many people who understand this concept who are able to develop this. That is the other problem. Then the other important point is, when you start, you don't definitely start with a big bang because this is an expensive proposition. This is an unknown area. Most of the companies start as a POC, right? They start as a POC, they start as a point of view. And if they have to scale, there has to be an acceptance in the organization, right? The first and foremost thing, the moment we say automation, people think we are going to lose our jobs, right? Now, there are two ways to look at it. There can be some jobs which will be lost because, let's say, it is something that can be automated. Maybe some job roles will go. But it's not to the tune of wherein we all have to start worrying if we are going to lose our job. But the human brain, again, does not want to listen to that, right? So then, the resistance to change is huge. So there's a lot of change management that an organization has to go through if, it has to adopt cognitive technologies. And last but not the least, nobody has been able to find a solution that fits all. Right? There is no solution in the market today which says, okay, IBM Watson, for example, will help you. Yes, it's a product that IBM offers, and yes, it helps you to crunch a lot of data and throw meaningful insight. But that's just one part of the whole gamut of things that we are talking about now, right? So, we don't necessarily have a product in the market which offers a solution that I can use and deploy in the organization. Because of which, hello? Can you be on mute, please? If you're not speaking. Varun, I'm having some background noise, please. Okay. Okay, so because of which, cognitive technologies are not able to make the same level of strides that is expected. Now that brings me to the last slide. Okay, I've given you some insight on what cognitive technology is all about, but you're all, in your engineering, right? So what are some of the skills, if you want to pursue a career in cognitive technologies, what are some of the skills that you should be focusing on, right? Without doubt, this is one area wherein it's not just good if you are a good at Java coding or a Python scripting, right? You need a bunch of other skills also, most important being maths, and in maths, statistical modeling, and around Bayes and algorithms. Most of the cognitive technology applications that we see today, especially in terms of data crunching and decision making, are all built on Bayesian algorithms. Then obviously you need to, in terms of in the field of science, you need to have good knowledge about physics, mechanics, obviously, because you're robot. If you're talking about robots and developing some sensor systems, right? All of that is based on your science, your cognitive learning theory, language processing. Of course, nothing. I mean, forget about cognitive technology. I think if anybody wants to develop a career in IT, two things which I always tell people is you have to be extremely thorough on data structures and algorithms, right? Nothing works beyond without these. I mean, if you really want to be an niche programmer, right, in any area, any field, right, if you want to pursue a career in software engineering, your data structures and algorithms have to be extremely strong. Almost every interview that I have ever seen anybody take is only on these two areas. Then I think the other areas, especially for the big data and ML, is around Hadoop, Python scripting, MySQL for your database, and of course some PHP if you want to, obviously develop your front end and things like that. So these are some of the skills that you can focus on if you want to, build a career on cognitive technologies. I think that brings me to the end of my slides. Let me see on time. Yeah, I think I do have some 10 minutes to take questions. Like I said, my intent was just to introduce you to what is cognitive technology all about. By no means can I do really justice, to this topic in 50 minutes. So, but if I introduce this, and if any of you or all of you are interested in one or two topics, I can do a deep dive session on them in the subsequent sessions. Okay. Now I can open this for questions. Yeah, okay. I saw one question which said, Varun, can you read out the questions in case you're seeing? I just saw one which said, ma'am, do recruiters consider freshers for cognitive technologies? Let me tell you something, right? Most of the organizations today, are focusing only on freshers for everything. Right? Most organizations today are only looking at onboarding freshers, both product companies as well as service companies. So is there an option? Definitely people will look at freshers also, or college grads also, for cognitive technologies. But like you must have realized with the discussion we had so far, right? It is a niche area or a super niche area. So you must demonstrate. It's not like a generic skill saying that, okay, I have done, I'm a good programmer, so I've been ready for cognitive technology. No, you have to show something which says, yes, I have done Hadoop, and using Hadoop, I have used Cassandra, and I have done, I have built, I've used MapReduce I have used MapReduce, I have done, I have used MySQL as a database, and this is how I have built a small sentiment analysis application, for example, right? So something like that, if you're able to show, then yes, you definitely have a chance. Because cognitive technology is not just about knowing one language or one technology, right? It is about knowing the concept and building a small application around it so that people are convinced that yes, you know. We don't have the number of opportunities are not going to be in hundreds like some of the other areas where people are going to be extremely choosy on who they select. But if you are interested in this particular area and you can demonstrate that this is what you've done, definitely the floor is open for you.
Shanti, in fact, I don't see any other questions apart from this. In fact, this was probably sent to you personally in the chat. That is not visible to me as of yet, at least.
Okay, let me just check, okay? Let me just check if something has come on my chat. Not really, Varun. I think this is the only question I saw. What's the hiring process? Okay. What is the hiring process? Is this a generic question or is this a hiring process at Cognizant or is it in general or is it for cognitive technologies or what is it? In general, okay. So in general, I think the process is very much the same, right? You will have a first elimination test wherein the company will have an aptitude and coding and communication skill test. Basing on whoever, each company will have its own cutoff for the college test. And once the test is, you pass through the test, then there will be a bunch of interviewers who will come to your college and take you through the process, right? Depending upon which area they want to select you, they will have relevant interviewers will come and relevant questions will also be posed. In general, what we look for from college grads is not necessarily deep knowledge because obviously you don't have the exposure, so nobody expects you to be rocket scientists, but there has to be a passion and earnestness to learn, number one. Number two, there has to be a desire to learn more. Number three, we check whether you are able to communicate or not. Last but not the least, your concepts should be very clear. Right. So, for example, I'm seeing one question wherein I'm saying, somebody is saying, I think it is Divyesh, right? Divyesh is saying, I'm learning ML and I'm learning a different Kaggle data set, right? Is it useful to hire? And yeah, it is definitely useful to hire, but, nobody is going to just go with, there will not be any wow factor just by seeing that, okay, you have ML, right? So people will definitely check you inside out on your concepts. Do you understand why do we need ML? Do you understand why you are looking at this particular part and not other part? What are some of the various ML options we have? How can you, what is the application of ML? So like that, right? So whatever you know, right? Whatever you're putting on your resume or your curriculum vitae, make sure you're thorough with that, right? Your projects, right? Many times when I sit through the interviews, I am very disappointed because people are not able to explain their projects, right? You just can't say that I went and I created one e-commerce site, not knowing what is the front end, what is the middleware, and what is the back end, right? So whatever you do, be thorough in what you're doing, right? And if for some reason you've just filled up, copied from somebody else, that is also fine. But if you're going for an interview, make sure you Google, you do some YouTube, and have your concepts very clear. Nobody expects rocket scientists from, not just Cognizant, any company does not expect rocket scientists from colleges, right? But they expect people who know their concepts very clearly and are ready to learn. Any other questions? Okay. If there are no other questions, I think, thank you. Thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity to talk about cognitive technologies. I hope this has been beneficial. Like I said, I don't expect anybody to become an expert after this 50 minutes of talk, but I hope it gives some idea about what cognitive technologies is all about, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you so much, Shanti, for making us a little bit of time for this particular session. I think we'll definitely have some request from the placement office for a follow-up session on this as well. So if at all we have any such request from the students, yeah. So what is it required to get into the cybersecurity profile? So we have a question from Sumit.
Okay, if you want to get into cybersecurity, learn cryptography, then learn network security, and I will hire you.
Okay, I think that kind of concludes the session for today. Thank you so much, students, for participating for this particular session. We'd like to hear from you. We'd like to hear from each and every single student, and we'd be sending out the feedback forms to the placement office. They will in turn circulate it to you as well. So kindly just fill in all the fill in all the forms, and then send it back to us so that we can actually meet at a different session for a different topic. And I hope this session was useful, and I hope this actually opened your eyes for different concepts altogether. And we'll see you in different sessions. Thank you so much, Santi, for putting the session together. At least I've gotten the curiosity because I wanted this session to happen. I had the curiosity removed right now. Right now, you have my attention, so we'd have to talk to you a little more into this.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys. I really need to jump off now. Thanks, Warren. Thanks, everyone. Have a stay safe,
So
and talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much, man. Yes. Thank you, students. Bye.